but I'm so excited to be chatting with three legends right here. How are you guys doing?
I didn't think there was going to be this many people here.
Yeah, we're good. We're excited to hear and talk about this.
A dirty little secret, I've never presented on stage before, so this was a big audience. Well, let's just get right into it. We so appreciate having you all here. But Bitcoin's been around for more than a decade. How and why do you think people came around to it within the past few years? And what role do influencers and icons like yourself play in this ascent?
Who are we starting with?
This is open-ended.
I feel like social media, I mean, you said it, the influencers and icons, that's the new generation. We see kids growing up now, they're all on iPads and, cars are driving themselves and things like that. Like technology is the future, so I think social media has a big play on that.
Yeah, and one thing about Bitcoin, you actually don't really think about it being around for so long. A decade is a pretty long time. So it's had a long time to kind of just to work. And I really like it. I'm really into the whole cryptocurrency because I think it's obviously the future, and in particular Bitcoin really stands out because it's so unique and it's so different.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. She said it.
Well, OBJ and Aaron, you guys made the bold step of converting your salary into Bitcoin this year. Why did you decide to do that, and what has it meant for you?
Yeah, for me, my journey goes back to actually a guy I saw you put on stage, on the screen, Russell Okung. I had a conversation with him a few years ago, and when he mentioned he'd taken, I think, almost $7 million of his salary in Bitcoin, I said, why in the hell would you do that? I think a lot of the journeys, you talk to different people in the space, it begins with the questioning and the lack of understanding, and the more you dive into it and look into it, the more it makes sense. And so for me, I had a great conversation with Russ and started looking into it, and like I try and do with any topic, I like to dive into it, learn more about it, talk to the experts. So I personally talk to people who've been in the space for a long time who think it's going to 500,000 a coin, and I talk to the crypto analysts at my financial institution who believe it's going to zero. And just because I wanted to hear both sides of the story and enjoy the conversation, and to me it was a no-brainer, even though there were people who were bearish against it. And so I looked into the opportunities, and obviously been great partnering with you guys and kind of getting the awareness out there. I think people didn't realize how easy it was to buy Bitcoin and to get involved in the space. And like Serena said, it's definitely the future of currency, I think, and I'm excited to be partnered with you guys.
Awesome. I'm actually really keen to hear, inside the locker room, are there certain people who are the biggest bears or biggest bulls?
Yeah, I mean...
Anybody you want to call out?
No, we won't call anybody out, but you definitely just see it growing. And like you just said before, it's been around for so long, and we don't think about a decade being long. But it's just going to continue to grow, and like you might as well get with it, or you get left behind. I would definitely rather be ahead of it.
A lot of the old guys, a lot of the old coaches, kind of looking down there. Back in my day, we didn't have anything like this and shit like that. I'm like, get with it.
Yep.
Wake up.
So one thing I've been thinking a lot about, and is really important to our mission, is about financial independence for people. And I think about that a lot for professional athletes, but also college athletes, with the recent change in NCAA rules to let them make money off their name, image, and likeness. Do you see Bitcoin impacting that at all, or how do you think those recent changes come into play here for tennis and for football?
Well, personally, as a tennis player, we didn't really go to college and do the college sport, but I was very excited to see that change with the NCAA having an opportunity to have these players really kind of be able to benefit from their own IP. It's a multi-billion dollar industry. So for me, I was really excited to see that. But because the avenues that we have now to invest in Bitcoin or to invest in general, in particular with Cash App, these college athletes have an opportunity. Sometimes you don't make it out of college and then you do other things. And they now have an opportunity to start their career because they have an opportunity to make money and they can start financial independence, which I think is something that's so important to talk about, and having that financial independence and having platforms like Cash App make it so easy. You don't have to buy a whole coin. You know, you can start investing, and little by little, you can build yourself up to where you want to be financially. And the opportunities there are really so unique, and so I think I was so excited to see that happen with the athletes for college.
Don't worry, Serena. I don't think Odell or I really went to college either. Definitely not at LSU, but
Yeah, definitely not.
I didn't graduate either. But
That makes me feel a lot better.
I think it is important to realize that, you know, when people are looking at the stock ticker like I do every single day, and you see Bitcoin trading, I think it was just at 43 something. They're like, I can't afford a Bitcoin, right? It's $43,000. But you can stack some sats, right?
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, I only learned what that meant when I partnered with you guys, and people were blowing up my messages, hey, thanks for the sats, thanks for this. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? What are you talking about? so I, you know, you can buy fractions upon fractions upon fractions, and I would say to the young kids coming out, you know, when I was in college, we got a scholarship check and didn't go very far in Berkeley, but with the NILs these guys are signing, to me it makes sense to convert a portion of that into an opportunity like crypto and like Bitcoin, when it's money that you're really not, you know, not worried about. Otherwise, you wouldn't see, you know, especially some of these young quarterbacks and star players making over $1 million a year. You know, to live in college on scholarship, you know, it's not super expensive. So the opportunity to set some money aside for future gains and future generational wealth, I think would be something these kids would really want to get into.
Yeah. Especially with inflation picking up, and you want to put it into the hardest money known to mankind.
Yeah, well, if the Fed keeps printing trillions of dollars, you know, the best defense against inflation, I believe, is Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they will keep printing money too.
It's the only option. Serena, I want to ask you about Serena Ventures. Mm-hmm. You've invested in Bitcoin and some cryptocurrency exchanges. Mm-hmm. What convinced you to get started?
Well, I've actually been investing for 9 years, and so I've been watching cryptocurrency for a while, and I invest in early startup companies, so we really have to kind of have our mind out there already as what's the future. So when we see stuff like Bitcoin coming up, it's explosive, right? It's really exciting, and it's like, okay, well, can this be the future? And then once everyone, and once social media, and once all influencers got behind it as
Elon.
One of the biggest influences,
Yep.
quiet as it's kept. Once everyone got, behind it, you really realize that it is some sort of stabilization in terms of currency. And I think it's so interesting because Bitcoin it's not gonna be a ton available, right? So I really like looking at it like that and deciding, okay, well, this is a super strong investment in terms of all of cryptocurrency. It's something that we really wanted to lean into and be a part of it. And so, I just always at Serena Ventures, we're just looking at different opportunities. We also, like you mentioned, we invest in Lolly, where you can also have an opportunity to invest through Bitcoin, through purchases and rewards. And so that's been a really good portfolio company for us as well. So it's a lot happening in the cryptocurrency world, and obviously I think it's all being led by Bitcoin.
Cool. And a lot of my talk was about increasing accessibility to Bitcoin and bringing it to people that need it the most, or how do you think about that at Serena Ventures? I feel like outside of cryptocurrency, you do a lot of other things to expand accessibility.
Yeah, so for us, it's super important to expand the accessibility. We want to have people of color, we want to have women, we want to have everyone involved in this, right? And so for us, when we look at it, we break it apart. And honestly, when you think about it, when this was all started to kind of bring some balance into society, and that kind of didn't happen at all. It kind of went the other way. So I think a lot of people don't realize that women and people of color actually will probably invest sooner and more, and so that's important to know. But it's just having that opportunity, right? So I think we're all here to kind of talk about how we can get that opportunity through Cash App, and it's such an easy way to invest, and it's like you don't really think about it. You just have an opportunity and you say, okay, listen, I'm gonna put $1 here. You can literally start with $1, right? So at Serena Ventures, it's really important for us. Diversity is super, super important for us to invest along those lines, and that's what we do. We've been doing it for a really long time, and now we are excited to do it even further in terms of when it comes with cryptocurrency and just in general in the whole Web3 space. It's a lot. It changes literally every day. We wake up and there's something new. But it's really just controlling that and just deciding what to move forward in.
Yeah, focus is key.
Yeah.
Odell, I want to ask you about how have your friends and families and fans, teammates responded to you embracing Bitcoin?
I think the thing about it is it's almost become like cool, you know, and I feel like it's super relatable for all ages. You know, my family, they're asking questions on it. You know, I'm still learning each and every day. So I can't sit there and give them like all the advice, but like you hear it talked about in our locker room, you know, the chatter, crypto, and all those things. So it's just, I think it's something that's, like I said, it's gonna be around for a while, and you just kind of got to get with it.
Was there anybody in the locker room at halftime of the Super Bowl checking the price of Bitcoin?
I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, I don't know. I would hope not.
That's a 40-minute halftime, though. I mean,
it's a long halftime. Longest ever.
Yeah.
Well, Serena, what do you see as societal or cultural barriers to getting more people into the space? I know you just talked a bit about that, but anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, I talked a bit about it, but also just talking about it, using your platforms to talk about it, and me in particular, using my platform to say, oh, this is what's happening, this is what we should invest in, this is some things that you should look at, because it's really just about, at the end of the day, it's really just about education, right? And just understanding who has an opportunity to invest in it. So I think that there's so much that we can continue to do and that needs to be done, and it's definitely going to take years and years to continue just to have people have opportunities to invest. And you know, starting as little as $1 at Cash App is pretty cool and it's unique, but we're seeing more platforms being able to do that, and I think Cash was able to lead that. But it's just really also about knowing that there's a belief like, okay, wait, I can invest, I can have a Bitcoin, and like Aaron was saying, you don't sometimes, right now I think it's like for one coin it's super expensive, over $40,000. So I think it's just about changing the education of like, okay, you don't have to actually buy a whole thing. Yeah. You can just buy a little bit of it and keep adding and adding onto that and building and towards. And then also when you're doing that, you'll also learn about other investment opportunities. You'll learn about other things that you can do as well. So, yeah.
Cool. Odell and Aaron, as we mentioned, we both worked with you to get paid part of your NFL salary into Bitcoin this year, but it's somewhat of a hack. The teams and the NFL are still paying out in dollars, in fiat, and then it comes and it gets converted into Bitcoin. Do you think it's possible in the next year, 2 years, or some timeline to get a contract denominated natively in Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think so. The NFL is just always about a decade behind, well, in Green Bay at least, a decade behind kind of the rest of the NFL. I love Green Bay. I'm going back there. Come on.
Woo!
But I think the NFL is a dinosaur at times as far as their advancement in a number of different areas. But I think there's a real possibility. As Bitcoin has become more mainstream, there's no way of getting around it. Guys are taking salary in Bitcoin. Guys are investing heavily in Bitcoin. And it's going to be there's going to be a push. It's just going to take one kind of game changer contract where a team with the foresight and with creativity, working with a player who can be transcendent with the contract, being able to set the table for what a contract paid out in Bitcoin can look like. And that's what happens. It always has to be one trailblazer, one specific thing that happens that is kind of the beginning, the kickoff point, the crescendo for all contracts to follow in kind.
So can I ask you a question? Did you already sign your deal with Green Bay for next year?
I did, yeah. I'm old though. It's got to be. It's got to be one of these young guys. It's got to be the Joe Burrow signs the contract, and
Yep.
somebody get to him about how important Bitcoin is. Maybe he can, set the template for how the rest of the guys can do it, because guys talk about it all the time. Guys are really interested in it. It's all over the locker room, and I think it's going to be something you're going to see mainstream probably in the next half decade.
Right on. Well, so does anybody know Burrow out there? We got to get in touch with him. Do you have any prediction, OBJ, on who it could be?
No, I mean, I feel like he pretty much said it all. But it's just something that you have to get with it, or you're just going to get left behind. That's how I feel. I encourage my family, my friends to get with it and just keep learning about it. That's the best thing. I feel like this is the first 2 years in my life where, like, I really look at what do I care for and what do I want to get into and how can I, continue to expand my mind with some of these things. So just get with it or you're going to get left behind. So
Cool. Aaron, I heard you earlier in the chat, you were talking about the Fed printing money and macroeconomics. How big a role did that play in kind of like your aha moment with Bitcoin? Did you study economics at Berkeley? I know you said you kind of went to college. How did you? Can you talk to me about this rabbit hole that you went down? Because you clearly know a lot.
I studied economics at junior college, actually.
Okay.
Any JUCO people out there know how difficult that class was. No, I love my JUCO experience, but I've always been interested in the economy and progress of creativity and technology, and also the hindrances to those advancements. And I think the only thing that can get in the way of the crypto revolution is the government. And I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next 5 to 10 years as they try and find a way to wrap their head around the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and the blockchain. And I'm excited to see how it all plays out, but I'm betting big on crypto continuing on in the fashion that it's been. I think the most important thing for Bitcoin that's going to help as it becomes even more mainstream is what you guys do on Cash App. And I'm not just blowing you up, as half the crowd possibly is either on their phone swiping or doing Tinder or whatever right now. The simplicity and the ease at which you can get involved in investing is very important. And the more that Bitcoin becomes a staple in the mainstream, even more than it already is, the harder it's going to be to attack the decentralized nature of it and the ability for it not to be regulated, which the government would love to do, I'm sure. So I'm excited about the future of Bitcoin. I'm excited about continuing to get guys more involved in the locker room to think about what they're doing with their investments and their assets, especially disposable assets. But I went down the rabbit hole years and years ago, and once you kind of see the other side, there's no turning back.
Very well said. I guess this question for anybody, but what do you think this audience of early adopters, founders of this conference, like, what do we need to do to ensure Bitcoin is a success? To we need more education, more access, more
Yeah.
awesome parties and events like this. Like, how do we keep the momentum going?
Parties.
Not so much that, right? No, I think education is the main thing to keep it going. Talking about it, education, and it's so important that it's built, and it continues to be built for everyone. You can see that governments are using cryptocurrency or can use cryptocurrency, as their main form of money in the future, and so it's really important for it to be built for everyone. And yeah, it's so much, like Aaron said, once you go down the rabbit hole, there's really no turning back because there's so much that you can continue to learn about it. So it's really key to have that education available as well for everyone, and let everyone know that it's not meant for just experts or just one group of people. It actually can be meant for literally everyone, and just how do you get involved. And so once we can break that down and let everyone know that there is an opportunity for that, yeah, it could be so much that can be done.
No. I totally agree with you, and we're seeing in China and introducing a central bank digital currency, and discussions of a number of other countries exploring that possibility. But to me, it's really the antithesis of Bitcoin, which is permissionless by default. It's open to everybody. It definitionally cannot discriminate against anyone, which to me is so important.
Well, that was the whole point of cryptocurrency, so it wouldn't be discriminate against anyone. So
Uncensorable, digital, sound hard money. It's gonna continue to change the world, and I think you three are playing a huge role in helping to spread the word, get it to more people, increase accessibility, and so I'm just so thrilled to have you three up here. I so appreciate all the work you've done and will continue to do. But I think that's all the questions I have, and honored to be up here with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Pay me in Bitcoin. Good morning and welcome back to the Marathon Desk, hosted by Bitcoin Magazine here at Bitcoin 2022 in Miami. We just heard an amazing panel of sports legends, Aaron Rodgers, Serena Williams, Odell Beckham Jr., moderated by Miles Suter of Cash App, who made a major announcement this morning. Let's see a couple announcements. You can receive lightning payments, you can be paid in Bitcoin, and you can round up things that you buy to save in Bitcoin. So we're going to discuss all of this. Thank you for joining us again. I'm your host, Natalie Brunel, host of the Coin Stories podcast. I have with me Stefan Livera, fellow podcaster, Q, who's host of Bitcoin Magazine Live, and Elise Colleen, who founded Stillmark. Thanks so much. What do you guys think? I mean, a lot to go over here.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I'm most excited about the paid in Bitcoin aspect of the Cash App announcement. I think it's just going to drive this adoption angle of the stacking group of people who are just every week, every paycheck, just stacking consistently. And that really just contributes to the overall growth of the ecosystem. So I think that's probably the big thing. And I think out of the discussion for me that I saw just recently with the sports stars and legends, some of it for me, it was just coming down to personal finance education just for the everyday person, right? So obviously Bitcoin, there's all this technology and all this stuff out there, but at a very basic level, it's what are you doing with your money to save? And so that's the important message.
Yeah, I mean, look, the big takeaway for me from that was not only are they continuing to roll out at Cash App Block, continuing to offer new products, new innovations from them for their clients and customers, but also figuring out ways to market to new audiences and onboard more people to Bitcoin and make the UX user experience so easy. Eliminate that friction, as we were talking about earlier. My favorite thing to do when I'm in a circle of friends who aren't Bitcoiners is I'll ask, do you have Cash App? Awesome. Let's slide on over just 2 taps to the right and let's buy a little bit of Bitcoin. Easy as that, and they're making it easier and easier.
That's right. I think the next wave of adoption is driven by earning, and Cash App recognized that with 2 of their 3 announcements today, the paid in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin roundups. right? So some of the earning will be active. People will be seeking to earn in Bitcoin, and some will be passive, like the roundups on Cash App.
I think it's really interesting too how they touched on the idea of inclusion. And, it's so sad to me as an immigrant of this country that the middle class has sort of been eroded, right? It used to take up the majority of the American society, and people could afford a nice life, an average nice life with a house, your white picket fence. That was the American dream. That's why my parents came here from Eastern Europe. And it's become so much harder because every year it feels like the goalpost, no pun intended, moves, and it's just harder and harder to afford retirement, afford education, and that's what the fiat system has created. And now we have Bitcoin that's reordering. It's an opportunity to create a new inclusive financial system, and it seems like all of those athletes and obviously Cash App, they get that and they want to bring that to these different communities.
Right, just like Aaron Rodgers said, the best defense against inflation is Bitcoin.
That was a great quote.
It's getting out there, and I think so the other thing that came across for me from that discussion also was they were saying, look, it's all over the locker room discussions as well. Everyone's talking about it, and now it's becoming part and parcel. It's just becoming part of the furniture. Everyone understands Bitcoin is here to stay. Now it's about how do you best use it? How do you go from just having a toe dip level of Bitcoin to actually increasing your investment or your saving and your overall education and understanding?
And it's about your curiosity and Bitcoin leading you to the right questions about Bitcoin, the right questions about the traditional financial system. And I think we see that there were different paths for the panelists in our Square hosted panel, that they asked those questions all from different angles and came to the same conclusion that Bitcoin is a good way to opt out and to opt into something they trust. I thought two of the themes from the panel converged. So there was a lot of talk about earning and also about diversity. One of the things I think we might be overlooking in 2022 is how earning Bitcoin drives diversity and how that brings in a completely new wave of Bitcoiners.
I also liked something that you pointed out when we were just chatting offline watching the panel, that these three major athletes came from, it seems, really humble backgrounds where they were maybe already questioning the system. I love that you pointed that out. And something eventually led them to Bitcoin. For Serena, I was shocked that she's been in it for 9 years. This is not new for her. And now she's trying to spread, awareness. And something I looked up while the panel was going on is just some statistics. And 40% of people who own crypto are people of color. I think that's a pretty impressive number. And 2 in 5 Black adults say they invest in Bitcoin versus just 3 in 10 of all adults. So, clearly this is like driving adoption in diverse communities, which I think is something we all want to see, right?
It's not a surprise because I think when you're an outsider to the system, you're already questioning the system and how it works for you and where it doesn't. And asking those questions leads people to Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, what are you most excited for the next panel? We're just 2 minutes away. We've already got the next one coming up. If you're just tuning in, we're on the Marathon Desk, hosted by Bitcoin Magazine here at the Bitcoin Conference. And we're shifting gears now. Now we're talking to billionaires, right? This is the Billionaire Capital Allocators. It's going to be hosted by Greg Foss. And we've got Ricardo Salinas, who just came back from El Salvador and I think speaking in Austin. We've got Dan Tapiero, Orlando Bravo, and Marcelo Clore. What are you going to be looking for in this conversation?
I think it'll be a lot of these conversations will be how do you get high net worth people and how do you sort of get the message to them and like what's the value for them? And I think for some people they're sort of stuck in a track of like, oh, I've got my stocks and my bonds or I've got my investment in companies, and to sort of change that frame and think, wait a minute, I actually need to think about where am I storing my value?
Yeah.
And that's the Bitcoin conversation.
But what's interesting is like the last panel, I feel like, these athletes, they have such a platform to the average person, right? They touch so many people. They have such influence. So that's almost bottom up, right? The retailers, the people coming on board through things like Cash App that are easy to onboard people. Now we have top down, the billionaire allocators and the companies coming in, the institutional avenues. So I love that we have all of it here at the Bitcoin Conference, right? We're touching on all of these aspects. Any final words before we throw it to the next panel?
I think one thing I'll take the other side of the coin here is we have to have a healthy bit of skepticism. A billionaire taking a 1% allocation of Bitcoin is a hell of a lot more allocation towards Bitcoin than most normies, most plebs are able to do. And that will change the market. I'm also curious to see what they talk about as far as self-custody goes. trying to custody over $1 million worth of Bitcoin is very different than trying to custody a couple coins.
That's right. All right. Well, the next panel is coming up. Thanks so much for joining us. Come back and see us afterwards. We're going to be discussing all of it here on the Marathon Desk hosted by Bitcoin Magazine.